into effect on September 22nd, and starting next month, the province will launch a QR code and verification app for businesses to streamline the process.
We have two options here. We either do this or we risk shutting down the economy, which would even be worse, having our hospital capacity maxed out and at the brink, having our kids stay at home, our colleges and university kids going back online. That's what we're trying to avoid, and I'm taking the advice of the chief medical officer, as I always have, and we're moving forward. When we found out that the federal government could not implement this, like every other country and every other leader in the world is doing this.
The vast majority of people are going to be very compliant. There's always a 1 or 2% that'll be noisy. We're trying to avoid confrontation. We're trying to be reasonable and prudent. I believe this will be implemented fairly quickly and efficiently, and we'll move on to the QR code, so there won't be those types of one-to-one interactions. So there will be a transition time that could be difficult, but I do believe the vast majority of us won't have an issue with this. We'll be kind and caring and compassionate.
And the move marks a significant reversal for Premier Ford, who has repeatedly spoken out against a vaccine certificate, saying it would create a split society. He says implementing the program is the best way to ensure schools and businesses stay open throughout the fourth wave. And for more reaction to the vaccine certificate plan, let's bring in Dr. Charles Gardner, Chair of the Council of Ontario Medical Officers of Health. Thank you so much for joining us. First off, I want to get your reaction and if you think the certificate plan is sufficient enough.
Well, I would like to say that on behalf of the Council of Ontario Medical Officers of Health, of which I'm the chair, we are very happy that the province is proceeding with having this vaccination certification program. It's certainly in line with the advice that we've given to our own Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, so it's very, very good to see it happening.
In terms of some of the confusion, I think when we talk about people who have to prove that they're vaccinated, they're going into some of these facilities, for instance, restaurants, they have to prove their proof of vaccination, but the servers and some of the staff members don't necessarily have to be vaccinated. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, in addition to having a vaccine certification program, we're also supportive of policies in workplaces supporting immunization for those who work there, those that are volunteering or students or contractors. And so that would be a very good supplemental to go with this.
When it comes to some of the places that are essential, grocery stores, healthcare settings, personal care businesses, places of worship, what's your take on this? Do we need to expand this list? And I'm just wondering, what kind of concerns you have about this certificate plan and the backlash from some individuals who are probably not very happy with it right now.
Well, to me, this is striking a balance in which you are providing additional protection in non-essential service locations against transmission and some motivation for individuals to seek immunization to be able to access those services without taking away their access to some fundamental services that they would need, essential services that they would need. So I think it's striking an appropriate balance.
When it comes to, there was talks about the sunset clause, and could we see this eventually wind down over time? What's your take on this? Because a lot of people want to know, is this going to be permanent moving forward, and are we ever going to see some of these, regulations be lifted, at least maybe a year or two down the road?
Well, I did note the Premier's identification that this would not be in place longer than it should be or would need to be, and of course, the province would have to determine exactly when that would be. In my mind, you would want this in place while transmission rates are high. They are high now, and they are going up as we are proceeding through the fourth wave. So speaking from my own perspective, I think it would need to remain in place for the duration of the wave.
Doctor, we also have had many issues here at some local establishments with a lot of people who are opposed to vaccinations showing up at some restaurants and harassing not only the staff members but for also the patrons as well. What are some of your concerns when it comes to enforcing this vaccine certificate plan? And essentially, a lot of these businesses are going to have to enforce this one way or another. What are some of the concerns that you have in that regard?
Well, certainly there's the potential for some activity like you described. I think in most instances we're going to get the great majority of people complying, and indeed with regulation, the great majority of people do comply. That's what makes it possible to have regulation. It prompts people to do what is needed, and at this point in time we do need protection in these non-essential service locations against transmission. So although there be some challenge, I think for the most part people will comply.
Dr. Charles Gardner, Chair of the Council of Ontario Medical Officers of Health, we appreciate your time. Thank you.